So we go. Sources have told our Adam Schefter that Texans star quarterback Deshaun Watson is still upset with the franchise over, among other issues, the process they used to hire general manager Nick Caserio. One source told ESPN's Sarah Barshop that the Texans have had internal conversations about possible trade partners and what their quarterback position would look like in the future without Watson. On that note, we bring in Big Swagoo, my guy, Marcus Spears. Been too long. Always a pleasure to see you, sir.
What's up,
I will be with you in just a minute. Nothing. That video, by the way, you guys showed on Get Up of Kendrick Perkins' son was absolutely hilarious. The Jeff Saturday Flop segment. I was going to tell First Take producers we need to see it.
I haven't seen it yet.
Oh my! He tweeted it out if you want to see it. Maybe we can get it later in the show. It is hilarious. What's up, Stephen?
May I interject for a second?
Yeah.
What the hell is wrong with Marcus Spears?
Why?
I mean, he said, "Hey, Molly." I mean, Max, and we just.
Hey, what are we chopping?
What's up with that?
She spoke.
What's up with that?
That's my people.
You don't know how to mind your manners. You don't know how to say hello to everybody.
Hi, Stephen A. Hi, Max.
Thank you.
Hey,
Let's
Marcus.
go, Molly.
All right.
Let's go. Right?
Don't make me have to tell you that again.
Let's go.
Don't make me have to tell you that again.
Let's go.
I usually wear suits and ties on this show, too.
Oh, my goodness.
For this today.
Y'all are
Mind your manners.
Stephen A., you got a basketball build. Max, you got a bad back. Let's all settle down. Max, how did the Texans...
Listen, what are you going to do, sit on me?
What do you think we're going to do
Oh,
against
can you
Marcus, even
guys
with a good back?
can you stay focused so we debate? People come for the debate.
I saw you boxing. I ain't got to sit on you. I saw you practice boxing.
Now, hold on, let me tell you
I'm
something.
the best boxer on the show. Everyone knows this.
Wait a minute. That was a long time ago. Stay tuned.
Oh, please.
Okay.
I got hands.
This dude winds up in a sling.
So you think you Nate Robinson?
Non-contact injury coming.
Could you imagine me hitting Marcus? I'd fall.
I thought you were getting ready for the Celebrity All-Star game. I thought that was your focus. Stay focused on one thing, all right?
That is.
Max, will you answer my question now?
Yeah.
Do you want to debate? Cool.
do.
How do the Texans look right now?
Like the worst franchise in football. The worst. Number one worst in football. I don't even have to go into how great Deshaun Watson is. As a player, Mike Greenberg did something which he then tweeted out, which I suggest go follow Greeny on Twitter and look at because he broke down statistically what Deshaun just did this past season. With only 3 other quarterbacks in the history of the game have ever done it. He was so great, and the Texans' defense was so bad. And they got rid of his boy and one of the best receivers in the game with maybe arguably the best set of hands of all time, certainly on a very short list. Larry Fitzgerald, a couple other guys in DeAndre Hopkins. This organization did that without telling them? Could you imagine Joe Montana in his prime? They call him into the office. Yeah, Joe, they don't know. He's watching SportsCenter and he finds out they traded Jerry Rice. It would never happen, right? The disrespect that they've shown Deshaun Watson. They hire a firm for hundreds of thousands of dollars to go on a search for a front office, for a coach, and they come back and suddenly the owner decides 11th hour, no, I'm just going to hire this other guy. Deshaun said, would you just listen to me? I'd like to give some input. You don't have to take it. I'd like to have some input. They said, no, don't worry about that. Do you understand they've so alienated Deshaun Watson, who is, by all accounts, including our own experiences talking to him, the leader you want? He has that magic pixie dust that sprinkles it on everything. Everyone believes they can win in college, in the pros. He is exactly the kind of leader you want on the team. Do you understand? You've alienated him to the... Let's say you could trade Deshaun Watson and get a haul of picks and do everything you wanted to do. You know what the whole point would be? To one day, maybe your franchise could acquire a player almost as good as Deshaun Watson, who you had on your team. And trust me, he won't be on the team for long. No one's going to want these Texans jobs now. No one's going to want to work for the Houston Texans after how they just botched this situation with Deshaun Watson. They look like the worst franchise in football.
I don't disagree with you, but I want to take it a step further, and I'll ultimately admit that, this is just my feeling, and this is not about First Take, this is not about anybody else, because it's going to be relatively controversial, but I'm going to say the damn thing anyway. Because the reality of the situation is that sometimes, even though we're incredibly hesitant to attach guilt by association, we have to take into account certain situations. Think about the times that we're living in, social justice issues and things of that nature. Think about what their dad, God rest his soul, Bob McNair's position was running this franchise as owner of the Houston Texans. He was not somebody that was considered relatively sensitive to those things. Remember that prior to George Floyd's killing, even a year or two earlier, there was some beef involving DeAndre Hopkins. And even though I took the position that, you got a contract, you got to go to work. You can't. I mean, if everything was contingent on liking what your boss had to say, most of us wouldn't have jobs. You can't allow that to prevent you from going to work. Nevertheless, he had offended DeAndre Hopkins because of sentiments that he possessed, and he expressed that, the inmates running the asylum or something like that, if I remember correctly. He used something along those lines, and DeAndre Hopkins had gotten offended by that. I'm bringing all of this up to say the McNairs are who still run the Texans. And so when you take it into that realm, yeah, they gave Deshaun Watson his money. Yes, he was tearful in his gratitude and appreciation when he had the press conference, thanking them for the faith that they showed in him. So why would Deshaun Watson do an about face? There's only one logical explanation. And yeah, you can point to Deshaun, to them trading DeAndre Hopkins. You can point to a few things that he did not like. But ultimately, if you talk to Dabo Swinney, his coach at Clemson, if you talk to teammates and friends of Deshaun Watson, people who know him, that's not who he is. He's a real dude. What would the about face entail? How do you go from crying with gratitude for them paying you to switching around and saying, I want out of there? There can only be one thing, and that is whatever you did after you gave him the money alienated him, which means you basically told him, we gave you the money, now shut the hell up, go play, and we'll do this. And that is the one thing that could have offended him to the point that he's so offended by that he has done an
Shut the hell up and go play with no one. Go play with no one. Without a defense, without an offense, just go play by yourself. What?
That's what they did to him, and he was like, yo, this is not what this was supposed to be about. That's the only reason Deshaun Watson would act like this, where he's like, I don't want to have anything to do with y'all.
Yeah, look, the question that was posed is how do the Texans look in this situation? Terrible. But they've looked terrible before, to your point, Stephen A., with the late owner. They've looked terrible before, to your point, Max, with trading DeAndre Hopkins, with a young quarterback that's in his prime. I remember all of us sat on this show and went crazy about that particular situation. But this is how it was explained to me about Deshaun Watson from someone. They disenfranchised their franchise throughout this process. Had nothing to do with the contract, and I'm so glad you said that, Stephen A., because I don't know one football player in the NFL, if you put $170 million in front of their face, they're not going to take it, or 150, whatever it is. But that doesn't mean there aren't underlying issues with what's going on, and now it's come to a head because of this particular situation. But this is not the first incident, obviously, with the Houston Texans. Here's my problem. Here's my problem with the whole thing. When you look at all of these teams that we see in the playoffs or we saw in the playoffs, and you think about their quarterbacks, and you think about the impact that the quarterbacks have on the roster. I think about when Stephen A. talks about Aaron Rodgers being a bad man and all of that stuff. And I think about the whole thought process when they drafted Jordan Love and how everybody was talking about, oh, this is the worst thing and the Packers have done a disservice and all of that. Come to find out, Aaron Rodgers and LaFleur have had a pretty good situation. They've been in contact with each other. They've talked. He's expressed the things that he's needed to see as far as the Green Bay Packers. Deshaun Watson is the only light in Houston. J.J. Watt, obviously, but Deshaun Watson is the guy. And you decide not to consult, not to have his input on his future. That's the thing I think people need to understand. This is not just about Deshaun Watson needing a say in the head coaching hire. This is his future.
By the way,
the position as an organization.
J.J. Watt reportedly apologized to Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
And he's owed an apology. Good for J.J. Watt. I want to say one thing quickly, Stephen A., before I give it to you. When people talk about the contract as though they did a damn thing for Deshaun Watson, I want to be very clear. Everyone read my lips. McNair didn't do a damn thing for Deshaun Watson. He deserves zero credit for giving him the money because every single owner in the NFL who had Deshaun Watson at quarterback was going to pay Deshaun Watson. There's a cap in the NFL. When you get a quarterback like Deshaun, and no doubt that dude's a superstar, they always pay him 100% of the time. Don't tell me Dak Prescott. I like Dak a lot. He's not Deshaun Watson. Deshaun Watson would have been paid by every single owner in the NFL. The Texans deserve zero credit for that contract.
Well, first of all, you're right, number one. Number two, nobody was giving them credit. We were just pointing out how Deshaun Watson gave them credit.
I know you weren't.
And so the point that I'm making is that because he was last seen being so publicly gratified and appreciative of the investment, and those words were the faith they showed in him. He used those words. Think for a second what it takes for somebody of that high character to do an about face against an organization that just a year ago he was so appreciative of. They had to do something. And I'm not talking about just the moves that they made.
You're talking about credibility.
You're talking about they had to lie to him, Max. They had to look him in the face and disrespect him. They had to do something
that is such
to
an
him
important
for him to change course like that.
That is such an important point because you could point to some athletes where if they had a problem with the team and you didn't know any details, you'd be like, that's probably on the athlete. But Deshaun Watson, if someone has a problem with Deshaun Watson, the assumption will be that's the team's fault.
Yeah, it appears to be a toxic situation for him right now. I'll leave you with this. Deshaun Watson accounted for 83% of the team's offense, the highest rate in a season by any player in NFL history. Unreal. Let the sweepstakes begin and let the best man win.
Hey,
Marcus.
Get out.
Yeah. Kawhi, a killer on the court. Steph Curry with the shot. Giannis, the MVP, or the big fella AD in LA. Who wins?